Welcome to the Produce on Purpose podcast, where we experience life being the real you. I'm your host, Randy Adkins Jr., and today we have a great conversation. We're going to have this conversation with Kevin Johnson. He's the founder and the chief executive officer of the Johnson Leadership Group, an independent certified coach, mentor, trainer, and speaker with a nationally recognized John Maxwell team, where he leads learning experiences that are tailored to meet the specific needs of the audience to help maximize efficiency, growth, awareness, and effectiveness. Welcome, Kevin, to the Produce on Purpose podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing very, very well, Randy. Thank you so much. Appreciate all that you do and glad to be with you today.
Yeah, awesome to have you on the show. What we love to do is to start off with just an introduction of your journey, how you got to where you are at this moment, and what you would like to share with our great audience.
All right. Well, I'm a native of Richmond, Virginia. That's where my roots are, going all the way back to great-grandparents on both the paternal and the maternal side. I attended the Richmond Public Schools, and then I matriculated over to Virginia Commonwealth University right there in Richmond, School of Business. Had a great time. Still have a number of lifelong friends from both high school and college that I stay in contact with. And from there, we relocated to the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area to pursue a career with the federal government. My mom highly recommended coming out of college that I latch on to the federal government for a lot of different reasons, primarily because she worked there. But I did not know, Randy, I did not know that I would stay for 34 years. And I did. I ended up staying 34 years. I was really, really fortunate and really blessed to have some really, really great people pour into me, men and women that just saw something in me. And I became a frontline leader within just a few years. About 10, 12 years into my career, I became a mid-level leader. And right around year 20, I became a senior leader. In my last 14 years in the federal government, I got a chance to serve at the senior level and do a lot of interesting assignments, not just here in the United States, but I got a chance to travel across the globe to a number of different military commands. It was wonderful. Interestingly enough, coinciding with my career and relocating to the Washington area, I did not meet this young lady that I ultimately fell in love with while we were in college, but we both went to the same college.
Awesome.
And we know all the same people, and all the same people know us. And so we got married, and from our union, we raised 3 sons. And earlier this year, we celebrated our 31st wedding anniversary. So we're still hanging in there. I always tease her;
Congrats.
she's hanging in there with me. And
Yes.
so in this season of life, Randy, what I'm doing is I paid very, very close attention to how people are led. I'm the son of a U.S. Marine, and
Mm-hmm.
the military has a certain style and culture to leadership,
Yeah.
much different than civilians. But when it's all said and done, we're working with people. And
Yes.
when you talk about produce on purpose, part of my life's mission and purpose is to see, Kevin Johnson, what can I do to help to make the world a much better place? And one of the things that I think I can do, and I am doing, is through my company, the Johnson Leadership Group, training and coaching and mentoring and equipping and developing leaders. That's my heart. And so that's what my company does. And I have 9 other certified coaches and trainers that work with me. So whether it's a government agency, a church, a nonprofit, an academic institution, or a corporation, we're deep into the bowels of those organizations, helping men and women to become better leaders, because when it's all said and done, better leaders help to make the world a much better place. So that's my journey. That's my
Yeah.
story, and I'm sticking to it.
Hey, thank you for sharing. And, you said a couple of things that resonated. My wife and I actually met in college, and we've been married for 26 years. So it's really cool to
Yeah,
hear you guys kind of ended up crossing paths, but you didn't meet each other at first. So
right.
that is so awesome. And it sounds like you've done a lot with leadership. You've had a lot on the military side, and now you're doing more in the civilian world. And that leadership is a big bane in all of the organizations that I end up dealing with, whether it's nonprofits, churches, businesses that I sometimes go into for consulting, that leadership really becomes a big part. And I actually was just having a conversation about this today, is that leadership is going to be the difference between whether or not you have culture and what kind of culture you end up having in your organization. So help me as we start to move into this conversation, that how do you feel that leadership really can help with a culture of an organization? And then we'll go into some other questions about leadership.
Yeah, good question, Randy. Well, when it comes to culture, the first question I always ask both the leadership as well as those in the trenches is this a welcoming organization? Because that sets the culture. Is it not a welcoming organization? Now we have an issue with morale, and we have an issue with retention, and we have an issue with attitudes and behaviors and demeanors and how people move because they may or may not feel safe in their place. And so it has everything to do with how we're being led and how the leaders are leading, and closing that gap between what leaders are delivering and what people are looking for in their leader. And that has a lot to do with culture. It's all centered around people. It's all centered around relationships, and it's all centered around whether or not we leaders are really doing what we are supposed to do, and that is to develop people, provide resources, training opportunities, and assignments that will help them to get prepared for when they take the next step. So that's what I think about. That's what comes to mind, and that's what I share with people when I hear questions around culture, because it's either welcoming or it's not. And the two are diametrically opposed. So that means you're going to get different reactions from the people. And ideally, we want to be a welcoming, not perfect, but a welcoming organization. And we help men and women who are leading to better understand what that means and why it's important to the people.
Yeah, I like that, to really think about how welcoming of an organization you are, and then that way throughout the organization you can really send that as a message throughout, and leaders play a big role and a big part in that. So as you've transitioned and walked through all of these different areas of leadership, help me understand, how does one become a leader?
Well, I believe it's twofold. I was just teaching this last night, Randy, to a group. I do believe that there are a lot of us that are born leaders. You can see it in young children. You can see that they have that propensity and they have that ability to kind of step forward. They're a little bold, they take risks, and they have what it takes. But even if you're born a leader, you still have to have your skills cultivated and developed. We're like clay, and the potter helps to shape us throughout our lives. And so that's one answer to your question. The other answer to the question is just having a desire to want to lead people, having the desire to want to be a change agent, to be willing to step out in front and take the risks, and be able to be strategic enough and also tactical, so that people that are watching will want to lead and want to learn and want to follow. It's really a combination of all of the above. So having our skills and our knowledge and our abilities cultivated, being a person that's always wants to learn and grow, number one. But I would say equally important is just having the heart and having that burden to want to step forth and to step into that role. But either way, always being the person that's constantly thirsty and constantly hungry to learn more and to get better and to ultimately do better. I believe that's a twofold response to your question.
Yeah, leaders, it's interesting, and I've read the books, and there's sometimes that conversation as, are you born? Can you learn? And I believe your response says there's a portion of it that you can innately have gifting to, but there's definitely a good portion that you can learn and get new skill sets and knowledge about. So you've been chief of staff in the Defense Department. How has that influenced your organizational leadership and what you define as leadership?
Yeah, Randy, that was a very, very key, instrumental, and very important position in my career. As a matter of fact, one of my key bosses several years before I stepped out on faith had encouraged me to accept the chief of staff role because he saw something in me that many times you and I can't see in ourselves or help us to overcome our own fear. And historically, I saw chiefs of staff being misused and abused by people that were more senior than them. And what I come to learn is that that was based on that organization's dynamics. And that was just based on what I saw. When I stepped into the role of chief of staff, it was really absolutely phenomenal. It's like sitting on top of a mountain and being able to look down because you oversee so much. You don't just oversee the staff, but you oversee all
Hmm.
human resource activities, security, property, facilities, all the training. You oversee all of the IT and the automation. You get a chance to see all of that. Not to mention, in that role, I was working with military personnel, enlisted junior officers, flag officers, and general officers, as well as
Right.
civilians and contractors. So those that were there in the government facility working on behalf of their company who won a contract, their culture is much different than the civilian culture, which is much different
Right.
than the military culture. So being able to see all of that, all of those dynamics at the same time, and be able to lead and manage and operate both tactically and strategically really, really opened my eyes. You're talking about a civilian culture where we're very opinionated. We always
Hmm.
think things should be done differently, and we never hold our tongue. And the military culture is chain of command. So when the lieutenant tells the sergeant, "This is what I need you to do," you get it done. You don't ask questions.
Right.
And then contractors are there really just to make sure that the terms and conditions of the contract are fulfilled. So they don't really have much to say, but they get things done and they're there in the meeting, etc. And so the different functions that I had a chance to oversee, as well as taking care of the staff and stepping in and out of three different cultures, all simultaneously every day as a chief of staff for almost 3 years, really, really positioned me now to do the work that I do, because I can honestly say I've seen it all.
Right.
And so it prepared me. It prepared me for the work that I'm doing today.
That's awesome. I have, had some experiences in the a more bureaucratic type organization where you gotta do this, and it is a particular chain of command or command and control, as we sometimes call it. And then I've also been parts of nonprofits where everybody's there for a common goal, but you can't fire somebody because they don't want to do it, but you have to then lead with influence. And it's very different when you have all of these different groups. And then I understand contracting because, sometimes you're on a contract and, everyone's just trying to work on the particular contract. So you're really managing contracts and services. So, wow, you had to have very diverse, different leadership, principles for all of those. Over your career now, what would you say is a good leadership philosophy to have, and how do you approach a position where you are in a leadership position? How do you start off and really get in there and make sure that you're going to be able to lead properly?
Yeah, so that's a really really thought-provoking and one of those open-ended type questions because I could go so many different directions. But one of the first things that came to mind, Randy, as you were talking, one of the first things, and there's so many, is being intentional and deliberate about wanting to establish relationships with those that you are entrusted to lead. Now, that's a mouthful, and there's no cookie cutter approach to it, and there's no monolithic way to approach it because we're all different. I tell leaders all the time, to the extent that you're comfortable and using your own style and your own method, take the time to get to know your people, and in parallel, allow yourself to be open enough for them to get to know you.
Ooh,
And for me, for Kevin Johnson, it's just frequent informal conversations.
yes.
How you doing today? How things going? I really appreciate how you handled that project. Thank you for volunteering for that task. I'm really glad you're on the team. This team wouldn't be the same without you. Or, how's it going today? How you and the family doing? Anything I
Hmm.
can do to support? If so, just let me know. You know, I'm always available for you. If I'm not around, just let Sally know, my admin, and I'll make sure that I get back with you. These are just informal ways without having to get somebody on the calendar and sitting down in the conference room. That's a little bit too formal. Just an informal conversation, whether they're teleworking or whether they're there with you face to face, to let people know that I care.
Right.
You mean something to the team and me. I value your contributions. Your opinions matter.
Yes.
And that's just one of many ways that leaders can put themselves in a position to now be successful in using our influence to get people to show up, but not just show up, to participate, but not just to participate, to contribute. And that's how you add value. Because I'm telling you, people want to do a great job when they show up. I tell people all the time, Randy, I do not believe that people get up at a certain time of the day and take an hour to get ready and then leave their house and then go sit in traffic for 60 to 90 minutes to get to the office just to report for duty and not do anything.
Mm. Yes.
People that fall into that category, more times than not, this is human behavior. They just don't feel they're included. They don't feel that they matter. They don't feel like they're a part of the team. And that's a leadership issue. We have to take the extra step to make sure that everybody feels that they're a part and that their contributions matter. Now, I never said anything about being perfect because nobody's perfect. We all
Right.
make mistakes. That happens. But just taking the time in a very informal way to cultivate and sustain these relationships goes a very, very long way. And watch people's performance now jump out of the roof. Watch their productivity go up because they
Right.
know they're working in an organization and they're working for a leader that cares. They're saying to themselves, I matter. And
Right.
and that's very, very meaningful to everybody.
I've seen that as well in different organizations. Sometimes just a good morning. I've seen leaders that don't do that, and it different. It makes the whole organization different and change. It's one of those areas too. I've talked to many leaders where they have said, "I'm good with the informal stuff. I can do that." However, you said something earlier. You said share a little something about themselves. And so that takes a little bit of vulnerability. That also says that you are not perfect and you don't know all the answers. How can a leader approach that area so that they can be more relational to all of those that they meet? And how much do they share?
Yeah, yeah. Again, I always start out, it's about comfortability. I tell leaders all the time, to the extent that you're comfortable. Because when you're having these conversations with some of your people, every now and again, somebody will step up and say, hey, you're getting a little bit too personal there. Hey, and you know to back off. It's all good.
Yeah.
But most people don't mind us asking about how's their family and what they did in terms of a vacation over the weekend, and over time getting to know their children's name and asking about their children by name, because it sends a message. So I tell leaders all the time, and I really emphasize it. You're not Kevin Johnson, so I'm just throwing this out as a suggestion.
Yeah.
But to the extent that you're comfortable, open yourself up so people get to know you, and take the approach in terms of getting to know them and finding out what their comfort level is as well. Because we're created to be relational. Every one of us, even the meanest, nastiest, most divisive, sarcastic person you run into, when it's all said and done, when you get past all of that, they want to have a relationship. They really
Yes.
do. And interestingly enough, many times when we can break through some of those barriers, you'll find out just how soft they are. But sometimes that demeanor and that outward expression is just their way of kind of hiding what's going on the inside. And so oftentimes it's through these relationships we can soften some of that hardness, and we can get people to really, really open up. So again, there is no cookie cutter approach. I don't have a formula per se, but I
Right.
do know that these periodic, not even every day, but periodic informal conversations, and very brief to the point,
Yep.
work.
Yes.
They really do. Yep.
It makes you feel like you are doing something that's meaningful, potentially supportive, and yet you are actually being seen, which I think if leaders understand that, then they will continue to do that. And that cultivates, everyone that's around them to, hey, you know what? I'm part of something that's bigger than myself. And I no longer just think about me, but then I can now think in a larger perspective of how things kind of are put together. So I'll ask this question about leaders because sometimes we are in the space. We've done all we can for the organization. What are tips that you have for the leader themselves? Because we know that we talked about sports just before we jumped on here. All sports have coaches.
Yep.
In order for you to be the top of what you do, what's your take on what leaders should have in their support system and who they should have around them in any position, whether they're executive or going down to management or even the supervisor? What should they be having around them to help them continue to become better?
Yeah, I believe that our sphere of influence includes 4 people minimum. And here are the 4 people minimum on the job. Your boss, in terms of just developing a good working relationship with your boss, making sure your boss knows that you have his or her back. They can call you in at 15-minute notice to say, I got called away to a meeting. I need you to deliver this briefing for me.
Right.
Having that level of confidence in you where you're managing up to your boss, they can really, really be an ally. Number 2 are your colleagues and your peers to your left and to your right. Those that are at your level, they may be in different work roles and they have a different job description, but you have developed a relationship with them because they are a peer and a colleague. And there should be at least one to your left and at least one to your right where you can confide in, you can have conversations with. They know that you have their back. You know that they have your back, and have that kind of relationship as you go forward. Because we always have questions and we always need help and we always need some support that will come from a colleague, a trusted colleague. And then the 4th person within your sphere of influence should be somebody on your staff, somebody on your team that you are actually responsible for in terms of monitoring their performance. So at least one of your direct reports is
Mm-hmm.
part of your sphere of influence that you should have in your corner that you can rely on and they can rely on you.
Mm-hmm.
Not giving favors, not giving any type of an unfair advantage, but just somebody that you can really count on and lean on. You can send them an email, an instant message, give them a call, or have a hallway conversation about whatever the topic might be. So
Yeah, I like
those are
that.
the force. And what's happening is you draw the circle. You're in the middle of the circle. Upwards is your boss. Downwards is one of your direct reports, and to the right and to the left is a colleague and a peer. Those are the immediate four that come to mind for me that I share with all leaders. And then, of course, above and beyond that is a cadre of mentors who can speak into your life, plural, more than one, and also a coach, an executive coach, someone who's qualified, has the credentials, has the experience, know what they're doing, will tell us the truth, keep us accountable, and give us assignments, right? And the difference between the coach and a mentor is that with the coach, you're doing most of the talking. The coach is just asking open-ended questions around, what's going on personally and professionally in terms of helping us to be better and to do better. The
Mm-hmm.
mentor does most of the talking and we do the listening because they're pouring into us as it relates to their accomplishments, their achievements, and their experiences. They're helping us to kind of watch out for those, what we call those, what do I call those? The danger zone or the mines. Don't step on those mines, right?
Yes,
What
yes.
organizations should you avoid? What people should you avoid? Understanding the politics of the organization, giving you a historical perspective. That's how the mentor helps us out. Landmines is what I was thinking about, Randy.
Yes.
Don't step on those landmines, and mentors can help us to navigate that. So it's a combination of all of that. That's why leadership is so incredibly important.
Yeah.
You have to put on your thinking cap and you have to think through this. It's not for the weak, it's not for the weary, but you have to be very strategic. You have to want to do it and you have to be prepared to do it because you're leading people and people are complex and complicated. But it's something that's needed. And with
Yes.
the right temperament and the right attitude and the right mindset, we can get it done. I've seen it happen.
Yeah, it can be very rewarding, especially when number one, you see people grow, and number two, you see the organization or the mission or whatever you are trying to accomplish actually get done, and especially if you put in a lot of good work to whatever you're doing.
Mm.
So we're going to transition a little bit here because you've done some things that are dear to my heart, and I've written a book, and sounds like you've got some books. So the Give God the Glory book series has won numerous awards. What inspired you to write these books? And then I'll ask some other questions because you also have some other similarities with what I do.
Yeah, yeah. So what started me on that journey, and we're talking about 23 years ago. So in 2001, I just wanted to share with book lovers and other people that promote literacy. I just wanted to share with people the goodness of God. And in part, I share my personal testimony, but for the most part, it's a teaching guide. It kind of walks us through know God and do the will of God concerning your life. That's the subtitle. That's how I all got started. I never
Mm-hmm.
knew that I would become a multi-author book. I never knew that these books would win these literary awards that they have over the years. But it's an extension of my career
Mm-hmm.
because in my career, I was writing articles that were consistently getting published in a national magazine that governs my career field. My
Right.
career field early on was acquisition, contracting, and procurement. And my articles would make it into those publications. And it gave me confidence in terms of being a writer and
Yeah.
the comments that I would get from the readers. So I went on a journey and started writing books. The very first book, it's only 6 chapters. And the subtitle is Know God and Do the Will of God Concerning Your Life. So I had no hesitation and no shame in sharing my faith and helping people as another means of getting to know God better and understanding that our relationship with our Heavenly Father is so key. It is so incredibly important. And then I got involved with book number 2 a couple of years later. And then before I know it, I was kind of cranking them out every year for a while. So all the way up into 2013, this particular faith book series, Give God the Glory, there's a study guide, there's a workbook, there are devotionals, and then they were available as ebook and also in print version as well. And I was picked up for national distribution, so the books could be distributed not only here in the United States, but across the globe. And then it was right around 2013 that other things in life kind of came to the surface, and I stopped writing that particular book series. Also, you may or may not know, Randy, but because of the work that I do in Kenya, Africa, I had a couple of the devotionals translated into Swahili.
Oh, nice.
I always thought that was pretty cool. And I was able to take I took a box of books with me to Kenya. This was probably back in 2015, probably. I took a box of books that were translated into Swahili, and I just left them there for everybody at no cost. So I'm really proud of that book series. It kind of got me started. I'm a nonfiction book writer. And then from there, other books were birthed as well.
Well, that's phenomenal. Congratulations in being able to do that and work that. I have a heart for Kenya. We actually did a missions trip to Uganda, and the people would come from Kenya and they would be riding what they call the boda boda, and those were the motorcycles that they would ride from Kenya, and it just interesting to be able to have that and have those experiences. So you have multiple roles. I have a role that you're an author, minister, business leader. How do you balance all of that in your life?
Well, I have a very simple answer when people ask me that. It's that when you do what you love to do, you just find time for it.
Yeah.
It's really that simple.
Yeah.
When you do what you love to do, you just find time to do it. And it probably helps that I'm early to bed and early to rise, and I've been that way all my life. So, when I get up 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, I have a lot of time to get things done before the family gets up. Even when my boys were little, before they would get up and start their school day, I could literally knock out 2 hours of work with no noise. It's perfectly quiet. Nobody's around. I'm uninterrupted, and you can get a lot done in 2 hours. So that's really, even today in retirement, still have the same level of energy, the same zeal, the same enthusiasm to do the work that I do. I love all things leadership. I love all things God. I love all things writing books. And but I will admit that in this season, I'm doing much more collaborative book writing than I am as the principal book author. So here's a little tip. Here's a complimentary tip for all of your listeners. Anyone who wants to become a published author, you do not have to take on the charge or the mantle or the work to write your own book. You can, but you don't have to. You can submit your story or your chapter to a contributor who's in the process of putting together a book. We call it everything from compilation to anthology. There's all different types of names, but you can be one of maybe 15 to 20 authors that submit their story, and now your chapter is part of that book that's going to be published, and you are now a published author.
Right.
So I do that. I do that as well. As a matter of fact, we just released the ebook version this past weekend called Leading with the Heart and Soul. And the emphasis is on leadership, but also humanitarianism. And these are authors from all around the world. There's 23 of us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to have the official launch in Dallas, Texas for the print version in November, where all of us are going to be coming together and we're going to have a 5-day conference and we're going to do a book release. And that's another way to really become a published author. So I do quite a bit of that in addition to writing my own books as well. And it's just as fulfilling. It's just as therapeutic. You're helping all of these book readers and book lovers around the world. And you're also promoting literacy. I mean, you're doing everything that authors do. There's a purpose behind why we write, not just to get our name out there, but we
Right.
want to promote literacy. And
Yes.
we want people to get knowledge, and we want to heighten their level of awareness on this topic. So that's what. And so again, if you love it, you find the time to do it, and
Right.
that's how you do it. That's the balance.
That's very interesting. I'm one that, of course, has all of those same types of roles in my life as well. And it's whatever you put as a priority in your life. And if you enjoy it, it's not work. It's just enjoyable. Why do we write? We put out a message. Why am I podcasting? We put out a message that will continue to help transform, change those that you're connected with. So as you're going through, you are in John Maxwell as a coach. How do you continue to grow and develop as a leader for yourself as you're moving forward?
Well, Randy, there's one thing that is really, really key that I don't really think people think about too much, but I want to share it with your audience. It's the doing that generates so much learning. So let me give you an example. I think I started out in the very beginning with the introduction. Our clientele come from government, city, county, state, and federal, corporations, small to mid-size, churches, nonprofit organizations, and academic institutions. So I'm either on staff or I'm an adjunct professor at a number of different colleges and universities across the country, sharing tips on leadership. It's the preparation, the research, the study, putting the curriculum together, developing the PowerPoint slides, and trying to figure out which exercises and which videos that I'm going to incorporate into what I'm teaching and what I'm training. I learned so much during the prep time before I can even begin to think about pouring out to the clients that have entrusted me, that pay me to come into their spaces to train them. I learned so much. I mean, I prepare, and this is no exaggeration, I probably prepare for a good 30 to 40 hours just to deliver one day of training.
Mm-hmm.
And one day of training is not a full 8 hours because you build in 15-minute breaks and you
Right.
build in an hour for lunch. So it's not even a
Right.
full 8-hour day, but I put in, without exaggeration, 35 to 40 hours just to deliver 1 hour of training. So all that learning that takes place, and that's what makes it so enjoyable. And I learned so much in this journey, and I'm so excited about it because I get the opportunity, is what I call it, and the privilege to pour into others. They trust me. They have a high degree of confidence in me. They have faith in me, for me to enter into a contract and to pay me, and trust that I will deliver. And I'm excited about it, and I love it.
That's awesome, and thank you for sharing that nugget of preparation, because sometimes I think that that is lost in just trying to always get out there and push and share information with people. But the preparation behind that is where a learning. I've always heard that if you want to teach someone, if you want to really learn something, try to teach it to someone.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're going through that process of trying to say, well, how can I convey this message in multiple ways? You learn so much in doing that, in that process. Well, time always goes by so quickly. At this moment, I always ask a question that hopefully will be a nuggets for our audience. it's simply, what are the 2 or 3 things that you would share with our audience that they should do tomorrow and that you have learned on your journey?
So number one is I always issue a challenge, and the challenge sounds bigger than it really is. But I would like to challenge all of us to uh, read one book a month. And I usually pause and watch people look at me like, what? Read a book a month? Now, remember now, keep it in perspective. Books come in all different types of shapes and sizes. Not all books are 300 pages. Not all books are 8.5 by 11. Some books are 4 by 4 and might be 88 pages and might have large fonts. So the next time you go to your library or your favorite bookstore, take a look in the shelf and look at the diversity of different types of books. And I would submit to you that if you get into a habit of reading a book a month, soon and very soon you'll be able to increase it to 2 books a month. And the reason that I recommend that as a parting word is if we keep our minds active and we keep feeding it information, it's going to give us all of these different ideas that we can move out on. And it's going to share with us how we can fulfill our life's mission. So that's the first thing I would like for you to do. The second thing I would like for all of us to consider above and beyond that, because I'm at the point now where I can read a book on an airplane, and not even the round trip, but just one way. If I'm traveling from my home airport in Baltimore, if I'm going down to Atlanta, that's about a 2 hour and 10 minute. I can knock out a book just one way, and I can read another book coming back. So I can literally read 2 books on an airplane. So you can definitely read 1 book a month. The second thing I would ask for you to do is make sure that you take self-reflection and a self-assessment of where you are both personally and professionally. Another way of saying that is, do you have a way of really taking a close look and measuring where you are personally and professionally? And there's all different types of ways of doing that, but just take a self-assessment and do some self-reflection when you get a moment, and just take a look exactly how are things going on the job and how are things going at home. And it's going to give you some food for thought in terms of an action that you can take to get closer and closer to whatever those goals are. And the reason I do that is because every one of us has goals, dreams, and aspirations. We all do. The question is, are you doing anything about it? Until we do that self-assessment and that self-reflection, the answer is probably no. But we want to change that to a yes, or at least a maybe. And so I leave you with those 2 thoughts, Randy, when it comes to those parting shots.
Well, thank you for sharing those, and I hopefully everyone in the audience will take that to heart of, reading the book and also doing that self-reflection to, become better. That's what we all should be doing, and we all should be measuring that and shooting towards that. So, Kevin, can you share with the audience how they can connect with you and get in touch with you in the future?
Yeah, so the name of my company is the Johnson Leadership Group, where we do leadership development training, executive coaching, and we also do some DEI training as well. Our website is www.thejohnsonleadershipgroup.com, and then my email address is kevin@thejohnsonleadershipgroup.com. Feel free to reach out anytime, anything at all you need to know about the company. Just go to the website. You'll see the team. You'll see some of the work that we're doing, some of the events that we have. You can sign up for a complimentary 20-minute executive coaching session. We have a suite of master classes, et cetera. You'll see a list of our clients that we work with in the past and current. All of that is right there for you to make an informed decision. And we'd love to come out to your organization and offer some training to help the people to be better, do better, and ultimately lead better.
Thank you, Kevin, for sharing that. And I definitely encourage everyone, go out, connect with Kevin, and make sure that you are becoming a leader. We've learned so much in this episode, from leadership to making sure personal development, understanding about really reading and balancing our lives. I really appreciate the literacy component of what's been shared today. And I believe that with all of what's been said today and what we have as a foundation, that we can utilize every bit of it to be better at what we do, to be intentional about how we move forward, and most of all, that we all will continue to produce on purpose.